Amy's working through killing somebody for the first time, and then it's just very off-putting. Hello, everybody. This is Emery48 here, and welcome back to some more Marvel Netflix. And we are finally done with all of Marvel Netflix. It was a long journey, painful at times, but it ends on an alright note, frankly. We have 2 seasons post Daredevil Season 3 that we had left to watch. And we start with Punisher Season 2, which, frankly, was not... Frank, see what I did there? Was not as good as Season 1 of Punisher, but it's still a good show. It would have been hard for Punisher to live up to its first season, because that was such a good show. And it was good because it had a lot of emotion in the violence. And it would be hard to bring back that emotion without it being relevant to the family. But I thought they still did a very good job. I thought they overused some past characters, I guess is a way to say it. But overall, it was a good show. We also had Jessica Jones Season 3, sorry. There was 3 seasons of that show. It ended fine. The ending of the season was actually good. If they had written the rest of the season like that, it would have been a decent season. But holy cow, it took a long time to get to the point. But we start with Punisher Season 2, Episode 1, Roadhouse Blues. Pete hooks up with a bartender in Michigan, all the way out there. He takes her and her son to breakfast in the morning. Night 2 at the bar, there is also a girl caught up in something illegal. Frank kills/injures the group coming after the girl. Bouncer dies, the bartender gets shot, and Frank kills a lot. There's a lot of death. Unsurprisingly, intro to Punisher Season 2 has a lot of death. Really shocking. They get chased from the bar. Frank kills a few more people for fun. His engraved ring fell off and was found on the floor by the supposed villain at the start. I'm assuming he's going to not be the villain at some point, because that's how this stuff always works. Billy Russo wakes up in the hospital with some creepy face mask on. Frank gets bartender to the hospital and drives off with the other girl. Episode 2, Fight or Flight. Bad guy visit. I don't even know if I realized the bad guy's name until maybe episode 11 in this show. So that was interesting. I don't know if that was intentional or if I was just dumb. Bad guy visits Beth, the bartender, in the hospital. He's very oddly religious for someone that kills people, and I can't tell if he's supposed to have like a Godfather Italian accent or like what's going on with the voice. Frank and Rachel get attacked in a motel. Frank kills a couple of people that were after them. One survives. Rachel and Pete Frank gets arrested. The villain knows Pete has been arrested in Ohio. Villain is kind of lame so far, if I'm honest. This was an incredible line that Frank used when talking with the cops. I didn't murder anybody. They died of terminal stupidity. I don't know if that defense holds up in court, but it is an incredible excuse. The villain is waiting outside of the precinct. Episode 3, Trouble the Water. Villain has some naughty groups tattooed on him and is instructed by big donors at church. Although the tattoos are kind of faded, so interesting. Rachel has multiple aliases. Billy kills his guards and forces his doctor to help him escape. The villain launches an attack on the precinct. The first wave injures a cop, and they take back their soldier. They then kill the one that they just got out of jail for failing. Frank launches a counterattack, kills them all. The main villain finishes off one of his soldiers, and then Madani shows up and tells Frank about Billy. it was kind of unclear. You don't see the villain escape and you don't see the villain get arrested. So my assumption was he snuck away when Homeland Security arrived with a helicopter. Frank and Rachel go with Madani back to New York City. And I really can't wait to see who the real villain of this season is going to be in true Marvel Netflix fashion, probably in the next couple of episodes. Episode 4, Scar Tissue. Billy kills a dude for picking on him. Cool. Rachel reveals the truth to Frank. Billy kills his abusive childhood care home owner. Mahoney finds the body, then shoots Madani. Nope. But wow, these names are way too similar for my handwriting. Madani finds the body, then shoots Mahoney in his vest when he comes to investigate. Rachel's name is actually Amy, and she finds out about Frank Castle. So we can stop calling him Pete Frank, because he's finally just Frank. Billy goes to his therapist's apartment, and basically an hour of just being sad for everybody. It was just a lot of just like finding out really sad, dark things about people's past. Stuff that we knew and stuff that we didn't know. And it was like, okay. Episode 5, One-Eyed Jacks. The villain whips himself. Great. Madani attends one of Kurt's veteran support meetings. Frank beats up a bunch of Russians. Billy meets with another vet who has the same therapist. Villain kills all the Russians Frank attacked. Episode 6, Nakazat. Amy stops Frank from killing a photographer that takes advantage of young girls, but does tell him he can burn down the building. It's a very interesting duo here. Billy finds Curtis, who tells him nothing about what happened, then walked away. Mahoney knows Homeland is covering something up when it comes to Frank Castle. Frank and Amy kidnap Russian leader. Villain talks with Madani. Frank gets info, then lets man go because he has a daughter. Billy is hanging out with Kurt's support group. They attack a tow truck driver for towing one of their cars. One gets caught, and Curtis was his phone call from the police. He tells Kurt about Billy. The villain kills the Russian leader that Frank let go. Billy and therapist fight, then kiss in a weird turn of events while she's stabbing him in the hand. Kurt calls a meeting with Madani and Frank to figure out how to deal with Billy. And frankly, this was the thing that I didn't want to have happen in this season. We built up this new villain, and then we just ignore him to go deal with Billy Russo, which we already spent a full season surrounded by. Yeah. That's the negative for me. There's just too much time spent on Billy Russo when there's this whole other villain and crime organization that would have been interesting to dive into more in that time. Episode 7, One Bad Day. Billy and therapist have rough sex because they both crave pain. Great. Billy leaves in the morning after some torture. Jake rats on Billy to Frank, Curtis, and Madani. Billy and the boys rob a family-run bank. Frank kills a few of them, and a car chase starts. Episode 8, My Brother's Keeper. Billy vs. Frank with guns this time. Well, to be fair, every time it's Billy vs. Frank, it kind of has guns. The NYPD shows up with Mahoney. The boys pick up Billy. Mahoney chases Frank. Curtis helps him escape. Billy kills 2 of the boys. Frank admits to Kurt that he couldn't kill Billy when he realized Billy didn't remember. Billy goes back to therapist with the money. Mahoney dealing with a Homeland cover-up directly after an FBI incident with Fisk is kind of hilarious. He just cannot catch a break with federal agencies just destroying New York City for vigilantes / just criminals. It's kind of funny. Frank beats up Jake. Kurt gets him to stop, telling him he's acting like Billy. Billy splits the money with the surviving members, recruits them to start a private army. Amy, Curtis, and Madani have dinner and drinks. Frank visits his family's grave. Episode 9, Flustercluck. How about a clusterfuck? I get why they did it. They can't probably say that, even though they show a lot of blood and sex. but a swear. Whew, no. Billy and therapist have more sex. It's great. Billy and the boys rob more people. Frank eliminates 6 shitty bounty hunters. Oh, I do remember that now. Yeah, that was pretty lame. There's a bounty on his head. Who put the bounty on his head? I think main villain put a bounty on his head, even though we haven't talked about him for like 3 episodes. Billy gets some truths out of Madani after sneaking into her apartment. Amy meets with a friend in the city. Frank realizes Amy is missing, tells Curtis there is a $5 million contract on him and Amy. Frank warns Amy. Her friend snitches. Great friend. Frank saves Amy, who is forced to shoot one of the attackers. She is terrified for killing someone, so while they are still alive, Frank shoots them again to just be the one that killed them, so that Amy doesn't have to think about that. Amy kicks her friend in the groin on the way out. This season was a lot more sad in it, and the epic music after every episode is very off-putting after a really depressing end to a show, to an episode. It's like, you know, Amy's working through killing somebody for the first time, and then it's just very off-putting. Episode 10, The Hearts of Men. Madani reveals all to the therapist, which is great. Love that happened. She was a waste this season, I'll be honest. She didn't really positively impact anything. What she touched went wrong, which is always good. Villain kills old connects in New York City, but takes a bad beating, which is where he had his tattoos from. Goes back to drinking and snorting stuff, which he hasn't done apparently since he left that group. The villain then cheats on his dying wife with a prostitute. Glad this is the holy villain, you know. That's a good thing. Frank and Kurt launch an attack against Billy and the boys. Frank kills a lot. Billy gets away while Frank thinks he killed 3 women while blind shooting into Billy's office. Although I think Billy had them pre-killed in there. Frank waits for police to arrive out of guilt for killing innocents. Therapist had used Madani to get leverage against Frank for their fight, which was Frank currently thinks he's better than Billy because he is doing kills of bad people and saving lives with those kills. So they used the innocent deaths to get Frank to basically stop chasing them. Which, hey, if you want to be that much of an ass, that's a pretty smart strategy, I guess. Episode 11, The Abyss. Frank transported to hospital by Mahoney. Curtis tells Amy about Frank. Villain's wife is dead. Karen meets with Frank in hospital representing Nelson and Murdoch. Cool to hear that name used again. Amy sneaks in as a nurse. Madani also shows up, so we got them all in one place. Billy calls Madani to taunt to her and Frank. Villain finds out wife is dead. Madani sees the bodies of the dead women and the angle they died from, meaning Frank didn't kill them because he was below the office and the shots came from even. Dirty Cop tries to kill Frank. Amy saves him. Madani saves her. Karen and Madani tell Frank he didn't kill the woman. Fire alarms pulled by Karen and Madani as villain arrives. Madani, Amy, and Karen gets Frank out, but Mahoney catches Frank and Madani. He cuffs Frank into the back of an ambulance. Episode 12, Collision Course. Villain forces the ambulance into a bad crash off of like a little on-ramp bridge to a highway. The ambulance catches fire, and then Frank. I wrote the ambulance catches fire and then walks away. I think I missed the name Frank there because I don't think the burning ambulance walked away. Frank, oh, I skipped a whole line. Madani arrives, but the villain escapes. Frank saves Mahoney before the ambulance catches fire, and then Frank walks away. Frank kidnaps the gay son that is causing all the villain problems. Amy and Kurt versus the villain. Amy escapes. Kurt beat to shit. Frank finds Kurt. Madani goes to therapist apartment. I don't really know why she went back. That wasn't really made clear. I guess just a hunch. Therapist versus Madani. Madani tosses her out the window, which is what happened to her as a child. Which is interesting, I guess. Billy finds her dying on the sidewalk. Episode 13, The Whirlwind. Billy versus Madani. Both potentially dead. Big fight. They're both passed out on the floor. Madani wakes up with Mahoney investigating the room. Therapist alive but arrested. Billy escaped, very harmed. And Frank versus villain. Amy captured. Frank beats up 3 NYPD officers. Billy passes out while forcing a doctor to remove the bullets. The doctor dumps Billy's body into trash and takes his cash. Curtis brings Senator to Mahoney, which is the gay son, by the way. Frank gets Amy safe. Frank versus John, which is the villain. Frank wins. Both beat up pretty badly. It was a brutal fight. Billy calls Kurt while bleeding out in the meeting hall, and Kurt promises not to call the police to tell him where he is, but he definitely called Frank, who comes to finish him off. Billy, Madani, Mahoney, and Curtis. Madani, Mahoney, and Curtis find Billy's body. Frank kills Senator's mom and gives Dad a gun. He takes a shot off camera, which I'm assuming he kills himself. Frank returns John to his sons, knowing he'd been used by that family. Frank and Amy go their separate ways. In a touching moment at the bus station. And I would actually enjoy to see a 3rd season of this where they reunited. I thought they were a fun duo. She balanced him off pretty well. And she was a fun character. And it added to the Frank Castle story well. I would like to say we'll stay at 4th. I think Punisher can stay at 4th place for Marvel shows. I don't think this season was bad enough to move it down. And it was no better than the first season, so it's definitely not going to move it up. But 4th is a good spot for Punisher for me. We have Jessica Jones Season 3, which we just didn't need a Season 3 of. Episode 1, a.k.a. The Perfect Burger. First of all, we don't need the a.k.a. anymore. I don't know why that's in here. Trish's mom wants Jessica to find Trish. Hogarth's condition is worsening. Jess finds out Trish has powers. Great. Jessica gets stabbed by somebody masked during a booty call. Malcolm finds her in the hallway bleeding. Episode 2, a.k.a. You're Welcome. I really don't care about a Trish Walker training montage. Just to accomplish some parkours. But that's what we get for like 10 minutes. Trish is trying to be a hero, but keeps getting recognized by the villains and the victims as Patsy. Trish gets served for her heroism. Trish goes to Hogarth, and Malcolm is helping on the case. He finds out Trish killed Jessica's mom, which is definitely awkward. The show is called Jessica Jones and not Trish Walker. So why is there so much Trish Walker in this episode and not really any Jessica Jones? Trish visits Jessica in the hospital. They both think the same person is behind the attack. Trish is the only fit to do anything at the moment. Pretty shit season so far. It's only been 2 episodes. The villain I don't care about. And nothing's really happening. Episode 3, a.k.a. I Have No Spleen. Jessica loses her spleen. It's basically the only thing that happens for like the first half, I think. Jess gives Trish a good bitch slap after she said something about... She was basically rude about killing her mom. They got the attacker wrong, but Jess ties him up for Trish because he is still a criminal. Possible Jess wasn't the target, but Booty Call Dude was. Episode 4, a.k.a. Customer Service is standing by. Trish accidentally impales a woman while saving Jessica's new client. Hogarth is trying to ruin her college ex's marriage so she can have her back for the end of her life. Villain is revealed, potentially? Episode 5, a.k.a. I Wish. Hogarth ruins her ex's family. Great. Trish and Jessica are working together. Villain and client know each other. Which wasn't actually true, but the villain went up to client and threatened his sister. X's ex-husband, now ex-husband, calls out Hogarth in a tub of blood and kills himself. That's a way to make a statement, I'll be honest. It seems a little over the top, but it made a statement. Malcolm is protecting Jessica's client's hooker's sister. Very complicated, like his sister, current hooker, very windy. X wants nothing to do with Hogarth. Pimp takes back hooker, punching Malcolm. Jessica and Trish find the serial killer's chopped up bodies. Villain attacks client dude, aka episode 6, aka Sorry Face. Jessica shows police the bodies. Malcolm attacks the pimp. Hogarth gets shoved by X's son. Jessica tells Trish's mom that Trish has powers now. That was fun. Jessica and Trish save Eric and hand killer over to police. Malcolm cheats with hooker, because why not? Episode 7, aka the double half Wappinger. Killer is let go. Hogarth is representing him. That's it. It was an hour of almost nothing. Episode 8, aka a camera friendly. Camera friendly. I put an extra A in there. If Malcolm doesn't reveal Trish, his girlfriend will break up with him, which seems a little over the top. Trish finds her mom tied up and dead. Trish goes after villain. Jessica arrives when she is about to kill him. Episode 9, I did something today. Jessica stops Trish from killing him, leaving him unconscious and evading police. Jessica tampers with evidence to keep villain out of jail, but keep him from exposing Trish. Trish is not very happy about that decision. Malcolm quits from Hogarth. Costa is put on leave for botching the hair incident. Hogarth finds out it's Trish. The cop that helped Jessica tamper evidence is found dead. And I'm assuming it's Eric that did this, because he had kind of pushed her around a bit. He didn't really like that. Episode 10, aka Hero Pants. Eric tells Jessica he didn't kill the cop. Malcolm starts working with Jessica again. Malcolm breaks up with his girlfriend. Hooker comes back, and Malcolm lets her stay with him. She's back on her meds and no longer hookering. Malcolm misses Trish's mom's funeral to bone the former hooker. Jessica thinks Trish killed the cop. Jessica arrested for the cop's murder. Eric finds Trish brutally murdering one of the people he knows has done bad things. Unsure if he had helped her find him. AKA episode 11, AKA Hellcat. I love spending 10 minutes rewatching the show. We did some Patsy flashbacks, but then we also just reworked everything that we just accomplished. Eric showed files to Trish and brought Trish to the cop. She killed him inadvertently. The show actually got intriguing in episode 10. And then we wiped that out in episode 11 by just rehashing episode 10. Trish killed the second one on purpose. Eric realizes Trish has switched to evil. Trish leaves to go after someone else. Episode 12, aka A Lot of Worms. Jessica stops Trish from killing the villain. Malcolm ties up Trish, while villain ties up Jessica. She was recording and gets him on kidnapping charges and confessing to Trish's mom's murder. Jessica hands him over to Costa. Trish then kills the villain while in police custody in a very brutal way, on the way to court, assaulting 3 cops to get to him. Episode 13, aka Everything. Luke Cage shows up and basically just gives Jessica advice and then fucks off. Kind of pointless, but hey, whatever, I guess he's there. I wonder who will show up in Daredevil Season 4. I think Jessica Jones is already semi-confirmed for that, but I wonder if anyone else will. Jessica and Eric tries to have Trish turn herself in, but she runs. Trish attacks someone, but ran away. When the young daughter shows up, she was also in the house, Jessica found out Hogarth was the link. Hogarth and Jessica try to trap Trish, but she goes after the ex. So Hogarth has her take her instead to try and escape the country. Hogarth did shoot Jessica during this incident in the leg, but that was never really discussed after, and she never mended that wound. Weird to put in the show that she got shot in the leg and then not even talk about it. Jessica finds Trish, who stabbed her through the hand, but Jessica then body slams her into the ground and wins the fight and hands her over to Costa. Jessica leaves and gives the keys of Alias to Malcolm. Eric starts working with Costa. Trish goes to the raft. Jessica goes to buy a ticket to El Paso, Texas, but hears David Tennant's voice in her head and decides to stay in New York City. Annoyingly, once they actually made Trish the villain, the show got pretty interesting. They just didn't do that for a long time, and then when they did, they were like, hey, what we just did in the last episode, make sure you know that was Trish, like she's the villain, and just told you everything again. Kind of redundant, but hey. This season wasn't great. It's definitely not moving up, but it wasn't worse than Defenders, really, in my mind still. I think that, well, this season might have been, but the David Tennant season was still good enough to keep it above Defenders. So we're finishing with Punisher in 4th between Loki and Hawkeye, and then Jessica Jones in 7th between WandaVision and Defenders. So nothing's moving. This video, there was nothing spectacular in a positive or negative way about either of these seasons, realistically. Although Amy was a cool character to add in Punisher. And maybe, if Daredevil does well enough, maybe some of the other Netflix shows might make a comeback on Disney+. But if it's going to be any of them, it kind of has to be Punisher in my mind. The other ones, I don't. Luke Cage, to be fair, ended off on an interesting place, and if they got different writers, maybe it would be good. But Jessica Jones seems like it's kind of done, unless they can actually make a good villain that I care about, that isn't David Tennant. But yeah, I could ramble on for a little while longer, so I'm just not going to. This is going to be a 30-minute video anyway. That's what I have for Punisher and Jessica Jones, Season 2 and Season 3, respectively. Let me know your thoughts on these shows and Marvel Netflix as a whole in the comments down below. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.